Okay, let's get right to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Up Front. Steve Van Sluten along with Mark Fighton. And as promised, we have a special guest with us this morning, Patrick Rosenstiel from Farmers for a Fair Deal. Now, as a rural community, we're all for that. Patrick is the founder and director of Farmers for a Fair Deal, and he's spent over 2 decades in issue advocacy, working on complex policy issues. Now, earlier, he worked on grassroots and field operations across the West and the Midwest, and he helps elevate the voices of rural communities and agricultural stakeholders by advocating for reliable energy infrastructure, fair trade, and policies that strengthen Midwest jobs and self-sufficiency. Patrick, good morning. Welcome to Up Front.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Okay, where are we talking to you from?
Well, where I am right now is I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. So, I'm kind of in urban America right now.
I was going to say, you're advocating for farmers in St. Paul?
Well, actually, I'm advocating for them in Washington right now. But, I think rural issues, kind of what most people don't understand is how rural issues are really urban, suburban, and rural issues.
Yes.
Because without strong, vibrant rural economies, it gets difficult to deliver food to the grocery markets, affordable energy to the suburbs. And so I've just always been one of those people who thinks that a strong rural economy is in the best interest of the American economy. And too many people who live in places like St. Paul don't understand the entire value chain tracks back to rural communities. And so I try to break that down for people like me, because I don't know how many of your listeners have seen High School Musical, but like there's a song that says, "We're all in this together." Nothing could be more true than advancing the interest of farmers and rural economies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure, it makes sense.
One of the big things that we're concerned with, of course, is the energy infrastructure being reliable. I personally would not care if we never saw a windmill or any sort of solar panel again. My thought is the future is nuclear. Now, your organization is also pushing the possibility of biofuels, right?
Yeah. Well, we definitely think that biofuels is an important part of the energy mix.
Okay.
And primarily that ties back to what we're working on, which is lifting rural communities and rural economies. And so, government policy becomes complicated, but if you can start from the vantage point of what you're trying to achieve, which is rural economic development, cheaper energy prices or more affordable energy prices for rural communities, then biomass and biofuel becomes a legitimate part of that conversation. I mean, so does nuclear. I should be very clear about that. I don't disagree with you on nuclear, but A great example is right now, and policy is complicated, and what I try to do is break it down for people like me so that I can understand it. But there right now is a rule called 45Z that is being bounced between OMB, which is the Office for Management and Budget, and I know you guys know this, but the people who are listening, I just want to break it down. It's bouncing around between Treasury, OMB, and USDA. And the purpose of 45Z is to create tax credits of up to $1 per gallon of biofuel produced for the transportation industry. Now it's in what it's called rulemaking, right? Mm-hmm. And we're trying to make sure that if we're going to do a $1 tax credit or an up to $1 tax credit, that those tax credits go to the community in which the biofuels are produced, right? So 90% of biofuel production is done in the upper Midwest. And what we want to do is make sure that that tax credit remains with the businesses who are providing the biofuel production, because then that becomes private capital that can be invested in an energy grid or generate more demand for biofuel production, which is good for farmers. But what's good for nuclear, right, is more investment in the grid in the region in which the energy is produced. And so it might sound complicated, but when you break it down to its core, it's just, you and I, we've been around rural America enough to just, it passes the common sense sniff test of where good policy meets the intention of, the big, beautiful bill, which is where this was all considered. So
now, what I remember hearing about the potential of biofuels 30 years ago, maybe. What happened to them? Why did they kind of leave the picture for that time?
Well, I'm not sure that they have. The Midwest is the leader global. Well, certainly the leader in the U.S.
Right.
And I think I would contend globally in biofuel production. And then when it comes to transportation fuel, 10% of the gasoline you fill your car with is biofuel production.
In other words, you're referring to like ethanol, things like that, right?
Yeah, ethanol, soy diesel.
Okay.
There's still a very important mix of certainly the transportation energy economy. Mm-hmm. And 45Z, right, is all about transportation fuels tax credit for biofuel producers, which is just it's an issue of focus of ours right now. We launched to be a voice for any and all issues that help contribute to vibrant rural communities. And it's kind of based on my commitment to this idea as a kid who grew up in Freeport, Illinois, which is in Stevenson County, surrounded by farms, whose parents moved to the suburbs, right? Because the number one export of rural communities are their children. Yeah. Living in a city neighborhood without understanding how important these rural economies are to all of our quality of life. That's why I sort of get into these niche, nuanced conversations around things like 45Z, right? Because they matter in places like Redwood County or rural Stearns County or Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, where these biofuels are produced. And I just think when those communities are strong, all of our communities are stronger.
We're talking with Patrick Rosenstiel, Farmers for a Fair Deal. Now, Patrick, how is Farmers for a Fair Deal funded?
Well, we're funded by stakeholders. I contribute some funding myself. We have multiple stakeholders who are interested in rural economic development issues and agriculture related issues. So we have multiple contributors and funding sources.
Okay, how would someone who has an interest in the organization and what you're doing, how would they get a hold of you or someone in the organization?
Well, the best thing they can do is go to farmersforafairdeal.com. And I understand that's a long URL that talks about what we're doing. Or they could Google Farmers for a Fair Deal, and we pop up on top of those rankings.
Okay.
And what we're designed to be is sort of a voice for rural constituencies to weigh in with policymakers. So while we accept contributions, you know what I mean? The biggest contribution anybody can make is their voice. Because we're trying to make sure people get educated, determine whether or not what we're working on motivates them to advocate on their own behalf, right? And that's what we think's missing from a lot of these conversations. So I started the organization to fill that void.
How long have you guys, has Farmers for a Fair Deal been around?
Yeah, so this organization is new,
That's
right?
what I thought.
We are, we launched, and part of the reason we developed it, Mark, thanks for asking the question, is I've been around issues of global trade. I understand the challenges of rural clinics trying to stay open. I know things about fertilizer inputs and how they drive the cost of producing food. I've been around rural telecommunication issues and making sure that we're building energy and telecommunications infrastructure that connect rural America. Like I've done that throughout my life, and where I saw a void was in just kind of this kind of conduit where we can participate in shows like yours, encourage people to take a look at what we're working on, and then become a conduit for real people in rural America to leverage their voice. Because what we're never going to be is a lobby organization. I think there's enough people who are doing that well. Or not well, depending on what we are going to be is a portal of advocacy for real people who want to weigh in so that policymakers make positive decisions that benefit their lives.
So this 45Z is just one of the many issues that you're interested in and that you're working on right now. Well, getting back to that specifically, what can the tax credit that's involved with 45Z, how can that be leveraged into a investments in an electrical grid?
Yeah, great question. I think we all know that 90% of biofuel production happens in the Midwest, right? So it happens Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Illinois, Wisconsin. They also happen to be parts of what are called energy grid districts, right? So, for example, Minnesota is in the MISO energy grid district. And I don't expect anybody to, I have to know this, right? Iowa shares MISO and SPP. So what happens is the 45Z program is about getting a $1 or up to $1, $1 tax credit for every gallon of biofuels produced for transportation. The way to maximize the value of that credit is there's a lot of electricity that happens in the production of biofuels, right? So there are what are called energy attribute certificates that maximize the value of the tax credit, that the biofuel producer can engage in special contracts. So they engage in the contracts for the energy to produce the biofuels. They also get the $1 tax credit, which becomes private dollars for them to invest in more electricity production which benefits the entire grid. So, I want to break it down as simply as I can, but that's why 45Z.
You lost me a while
Yeah,
back, but
I'm kind of sorry I
I
asked.
know you're trying.
But
Yeah, but so the simplest way to say it is if they maximize the $1 tax credit,
Right.
like if they get the $1 tax credit per gallon of energy produced, when they buy more electricity, that invests in the energy infrastructure.
okay.
And that everybody in the region benefits from it. So to put it like, that's why I said, I don't know. I need to make sure that people understand I know what I'm talking about.
Right, you do.
So that they can
We
believe
believe
me. And in the end, what you want to do is you want to keep the tax credits in the region where that biofuel is produced, because what it also does for rural economies, why is it good for farmers, not just the electrical grid, is that generates demand for inputs in biofuel production, which is corn, soybean, and if you believe that when farmers get more for their crops is good for rural diners, Main Street, keeping pharmacies open, feed and seed. If you believe that, that's the dual benefit of making sure 45Z, that those tax credits stay in the region in which the energy is produced. And if you don't believe me, Congresswoman Fishbach's doing a great job on this, breaking it down for her constituents, to Treasury, you know what I mean, and to OMB, because she understands why this is good for rural economies.
Well, next time we have her on, we'll have to pick her brain about that. That's something you got to make a note of.
Again, Farmers for a Fair Deal. Patrick Rosenstiel is with us this morning. But just Google it or go to farmersforafairdeal.com.
Put it in a search engine, which is really what don't
Google's it.
Google's like Kleenex, okay? So everybody refers to it, but actually there's a lot of other search engines you should use. But anyway, and it'll pop right up. It comes out at the top, and it's a very very well organized website. You can a lot of drop down menus that will explain. I was reading about the 45Z clean fuel production tax credit, and they do explain it, but it's like, okay, I can read these words, but I don't quite register with what they're doing.
Well, but you should go look them up once. Take a look at the site, because this is a coming thing.
More than anything, you'd like people to register on the website so that you know they're out there and that they may be able to give you information or advocate. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, and if there's any other issues we need to be aware of, we'd love to hear from people on the front lines. That's what's really important about participating. And I'm curious, Mark, if I got one more second, what's your favorite search engine? Because I'll start using it.
DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo. Yeah, okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I knew.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a privacy. It has privacy, so they can't really figure out what you're searching. And I don't use Google because, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, but Google's evil.
Got it.
So
no problem. DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, DuckDuckGo. Try that one. It's a great search engine. So,
well, Patrick,
appreciate it.
We are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll go to your website. We will talk to Congresswoman Fishbach about this more, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the future.
Well, I thank you for having us and all you do.
All right. Thanks. And we will be right back.